Hello, everybody. Hello. Hello. I am back once again. It's actually a new schedule, new me, new time zone, new everything. So, um, it's probably gonna be a lot of new faces here, I would expect. Uh, hey, Arthur Paladin. Maybe. Oh yes, I was in Sharky's stream. I was. I did was. Uh, it's not 2 a.m. for me. It's 8 a.m. for me. Silings. So that's what I'm. I just woke up. I just like decided to do this kind of thing. I'm gonna be doing like early morning streams from now on. Now on. Early morning streams slash late evenings for you. Well, nights. You know. Welcome. Welcome. I am back. Pleasure to meet you all. Probably people who might be. Okay, let me check. Check. Okay, let me see. I need to check the overlay really quickly. Chat. Ah, that's what I need to do.
Bananas.
Bananas. Welcome, Arthur Paladin. Thank you for your bananas. Also, you can just talk through the waifu, the chat waifu if you want to, which is a slash exclamation point say, like this. Destroy all humans.
Destroy all humans.
Say? She's speaking. You can speak through the chat waifu. Speaking of chat, I need to do something. I need to reset the cache of the current page, yeah, and now it should work. Yes, indeed it is. It is the chat waifu. This is the chat waifu. This is a free model I'm using for my chat avatar temporarily. It's speaking through the power of the VTC Pug extension, and it's quite entertaining. I'd like to use it sometimes if you'd like to, people. I don't know how many people will come because it's like a very unorthodox stream for me. I don't usually stream this time around. Not a lot of people actually are here. But speaking of, thank you for the follow, Vance 5612. Thank you for the follow. Welcome to the library if you are still here. And Arthur Paladin, feel free to stay around if you'd like to. I'm going to be doing the streams around this time. And yeah, I think I was on Sharky's stream before. That did happen. Also, Sharky was participating in a program I had been co-hosting, I think. That's basically what happened. But yes, welcome. Hope people decide to join in because I'm gonna be reading some books. Well, not books. Book one particular. Dostoevsky, Crime and Punishment. Read online. I hope I can find it. Yeah, I can find it. Okay. Yep, I did indeed find it. Chapter 4. I'm gonna be starting with chapter 4 in just a moment. But yes, welcome everybody. I'm a little quiet today because I mean it's ASMR, so I would rather be very quiet and like not exactly over the top. I think it's something I should be working on a little bit. Yes, exactly. I'm reading you a bedtime story. That is it. That is exactly what I'm doing. Thank you for clarifying. It's an interesting bedtime story considering it's like a few chapters of a book, but I think it would be interesting experience nonetheless. I think I decided to keep this. It is bedtime for me. Yes, I know it is. I know it is. That's why I'm streaming right now. It's evening/bedtime for people, and that would be more people will actually be more susceptible to dropping by, I'd say. And a lot of people who are watching VTubers, and let's be real, we are all the same. We do not have sleeping schedule, and a lot of people who watch VTubers often stay up until late o'clock. So I'm banking on that. How many? It's like 12 o'clock right now. Either 12 or something around 12, right? Because here it's like 8 a.m. There's differences in 12 hours with America sometimes, but so it's mostly like 8, 9 to 12 kind of scenario. 12, yeah, okay, so it's 12. Yeah, figured as much though. So 8 hour difference. Cool, cool. Well, I would say this is a very interesting so far. I'm feeling a bit more refreshed than usual because I'm not because I am not because I'm not tired. I usually end up being tired around the time we start streaming, and I am not tired this time around. I am the observer. I'm not tired. I'm the observer this time around. Yes, I died joked myself. What else did you expect? Um, I had a decent sleep, I'd say. Decent. Hey, Venom. It's been a minute. Glad you decided to drop by. I have the big rasp right now. Big rasp. What do you think about the change in schedule this time around, Venom? I think it's appropriate. Late evenings, relaxed jazz music, reading a book. Oh, I've been decent. I've been changing my sleeping schedule. I've been doing some other stuff. I've been trying to adjust my new lifestyle. I got a sponsorship. I might actually take from like World of Warships. Never played the game. Might as well try. Might as well try it out. Other than that, nothing really happened. I'm still working on this week's short. I haven't started, honestly, but it should be a little less complicated considering I don't actually need to get game footage and edit game footage. It's just gonna be me rambling on about some stuff. I might actually consider recording 3 at once and then edit them out as I go. I might do it later. My schedule good. I won't be able to tune as much. Well, since I'm starting school again, since the break is over, I find the schedule good, but I won't be able to tune as much. That's fine. That is fine. I'm going to be streaming mostly around this time. Mostly. Like this. It's currently 8 a.m. here, and I'm gonna be starting most of my streams at 8 a.m. except Deep Rock Fridays, which is gonna be staying Friday on the same time. So Friday 6 p.m. UTC. Okay. Ah-da-da. Ah-da-da. Anyway, welcome to the new viewers who just heard that. ASMR. But yeah, most of my schedule is now can be found on Twitch as well. If you want to check out when I'm gonna be live in your time zone, go ahead, check it out. Check out my schedule on Twitch.com. Or on my Twitter if you want to, and there are like specific time zones. That should be plenty of description. Yes. Let's go. Let's go. Oh my god. Not exactly sure how to how to really go about things from this point on. But yeah, I'll figure it out. Anyway, how you been, chat? Anything you can say? Anything you want to say? Anything you want to share with with me? Surprisingly, more people than usual this time around. Maybe a lot of people are doing their subathons and donathons and stuff like that. Oh, they're still doing a subathon. Nice. Ooh, Vitubertige. Welcome, 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 welcome. Surprising amount of new people here. Surprising amount of new people here. I guess I'm guessing that's the time zone difference that took attention. Anyway, welcome. I am the Observer. I'm a variety streamer. Currently, I'm viving for that goal of 600 viewers. 600 viewers? What the fuck am I saying? 600 followers. I will not be getting 600 viewers anytime soon. Anytime soon. Gonna be doing the reading of Dostoevsky, Crime and Punishment, from chapter 4 to chapter 5, I'd say. Like 4 or 5. It's gonna be a shorter-ish stream because I don't really like to do SMR too long. It loses its touch if you do, and everyone is already asleep anyway. And I'm trying my new time slot, seeing how I feel about it, seeing how I experience the whole thing. That should be good. I think that should be good. We could start, effectively. I just need to pull out some jazz music real quick. I should just need to choose jazz. Jazz. Okay. Let me see. Back to 0. Let's adjust the sounds. BTC Pog, yes. Everything is good. Discord. Yeah, there we go. Let's adjust this one. Okay. Can just do that like this. I just can just do it like this. Fuck it hell. Forgot I can just do it like that. Okay. Let's do this. Thank you for the compliment. Actually, I do love the model as well. It's a favorite of mine. I mean, I don't have any other models, but you know, it's the thought that counts. Man. Is the sound alright, guys? Sound alright? Voice compared to the jazz music, everything right? Pulled out the microphone a little closer, but I don't need to level a little bit, so my camera actually can capture me just fine, right? Okay, should be good. But yeah, do tell. I need to make sure everything is all right on that end because, frankly, I would like to make sure everything is cool before I start reading. If you want to talk to me in the process of me reading, you can always use the command chat slash exclamation point say and talk to me because I do hear it in my headphones. Thank you for the hydrate silence. The fuck are you bonking me? I'm not doing anything. I'm actually I'm actually a good boy now. Okay, I'm done. God damn it. You need to get bonked yourself too sometimes, man. You really do. You really do, man. Is that like yeah, I'm done leaves? Okay, sure. All right. Well, please, if you have time, Silence, can you tell me if the combination of voice and sound and music is all right? Silence, answer my question, please. Is the combination of jazz music? It's good. Okay, it's good. Cool. I'm just speaking a little slower and a little quieter, so I think it would be more appropriate. to make sure I am heard over the sound of everything else. All right, let's then begin the chapter 4 of Crime and Punishment by Fyodor Dostoevsky. Where we last left off, our titular hero had went through a bit of a interesting day, after which he encountered he pawned a thing, then he found himself within an alley, within a bar where he successfully talked to and helped out an old drunk serviceman. After which he had returned home and received a letter from his mother about their state of affairs and their general state of being back then, where they came from. It concluded on him rapidly escaping his house and going off somewhere else. Now we're gonna continue on where we left off. Okay, let me see. I need to just. Okay. Yeah. Okay. He waked up the next day. He waked up late next day after a broken sleep, but his sleep had not refreshed him. He waked up bilious, irritable, ill-tempered, and ill-tempered, and looked with hatred at his room. It was a tiny cupboard. Oh, okay. No. That's chapter 3. What the fuck is it? Okay. Sorry. For some reason, it dropped my attention. His mother's letter has been a torture to him, but as regards the chief fact in it, he had felt not one moment's hesitation, even whilst he was reading the letter. The essential question was settled, and irrevocably settled in his mind. Never such a marriage while I am alive, and Mr. Luzin be damned. The thing is perfectly clear, he had muttered to himself, with a malignant smile, anticipating the triumph of his decision. No, mother, no, Donia, you won't deceive me. And then they apologize for not asking my advice, for taking the decision without me, I dare say. They imagine it is arranged now and I can be broken off, but we will see whether it can or not. A magnificent excuse. Pyotr Pyotrovich is such a busy man that even his wedding has to be in post-haste, almost by express. No, Donia, I see it all, and I know what you want to say to me, and I know, too, what you were thinking about. When you walked up and down all night, and what your prayers were like before the Holy Mother of Kazan, who stands in Mother's bedroom, bitter in the ascent to Golgotha. So it is finally settled. You have determined to marry a sensible businessman, Avdofia Romanovna. One who has a fortune, has already made his fortune. This is so much more solid and impressive. That is so much more solid and impressive. A man who holds 2 government posts and who shares the ideas of our most rising generation, as Mother writes, and who seems to be kind, as Donia herself observes. That seems beats everything. And that very Donia, for that very seems, is marrying him. Splendid. But I should like to know why Mother has written to me about our most rising generation, simply as a descriptive touch, or with an idea of prepossessing me in favor of Mr. Luzin. Oh, the cunning of them! I should like to know one thing more. How far they were open with one another that day and night and all the time since? Was it all put into words, or did both understand that they had the same thing at heart and in their minds, so that there was no need to speak of it aloud, and better not to speak of it? Most likely it was partially like that. From Mother's letters it's evident. He struck her as rude a little, and Mother in her simplicity took her observations to Donia. And she was sure to be vexed and answered her angrily, I should think so. Who would not be angered when it was quite clear without any naive questions, and when it was understood that it was useless to discuss it? And why does she write to me, love Dunia, Rodia, and she loves you more than herself? Has she a secret conscience prick at sacrificing her daughter to her son? You are our own one comfort. You are everything to us. Oh, mother! His bitterness grew more and more intense. As if he had happened to meet Mr. Luzin at the moment, he might have murdered him. Yes, that's true. He continued pursuing the whirling ideas that chased each other in his brain. It is true that it needs time and care to get to know a man. But there is no mistake about Mr. Luzin. The chief thing is he is a man of business and seems kind. That was something, wasn't it? To send the bags and the big bucks for them. A kind man, no doubt, after that. But his bride and her mother are to drive in a peasant's cart covered with sacking. I know I have been driven in it. No matter. It is only 90 versts, and then they can travel very comfortably third class. For 1,000 versts. Quite right, too. One must cut one's coat according to one's cloth. But what about you, Mr. Luzin? She is your bride, and you must be aware that her mother has to raise money on her pension for the journey. To be sure, it's a matter of business, and partnership for mutual benefit will equal shares in expenses. Food and drink provided. But pay for your tobacco. The businessman has got the better of them too. The luggage will cost less than their fares and likely go for nothing. How is it that they don't both see all that? Or is it that they don't want to see? And they are pleased. And to think that this is the only first blossoming. And this is only the first blossoming, and that the real fruits are to come. But what really matters is not the stinginess, is not the meanness, but the tone of the whole thing. For that will be the tone after the marriage. It's a foretaste of it. And mother too. Why should be so lavish? What will she have by what will she have by the time she gets to Petersburg? 3 silver rubles and 2 paper ones, as she said. The old woman. What does she expect to live upon in Petersburg afterwards? She has her reasons already for guessing that she could not live with Donia after the marriage, even for the first 2 months. The good man has no doubt let slip something on that subject also. The mother would deny it. I shall refuse, says she. On whom is she reckoning then? Is she counting on that is left of her 120 rubles of pensions when Afanasy Ivanovich's debt is paid? She knits woolen shawls and embroiders cuffs, ruining her old eyes. On all her shawls don't add more than 20 rubles a year to her 120. I know that. So she's building all her hopes all the time on Mr. Lunazin's generosity. He will offer it of himself. He will press it on me. You may wait a long time for that. That's how it always is with this Schillerovsk noble hearts. Till the last moment, every goose is a swan to them. Till the last moment, they hope for the best and will see nothing wrong. And although they have an inkling of the other side of the picture, yet they won't face the truth till they are forced to. The very thought of it makes them shiver. They thrust the truth away with both hands until the man they deck out in false colors puts a fool's cap on them with his own hands. I should like to know whether Mr. Luzin has any orders of merit. I bet he has the Anna in his butthole, and he puts buttonhole. Yeah, I bet his Anna in his buttonhole, and then he puts it on when he goes to dine with contractors or merchants. He will be sure to have it for his wedding too. Enough of him. Confound him. Oh, they use the word confound. Interesting. Well, mother, I don't wonder at all. Ah, well, mother, I don't wonder at. It's like her, God bless her. But how could Donia? Donia, darling, as though I did not know you. You were nearly 20 when I saw you last. I understood you then. Mother writes that Donia can put up with a great deal. I know that very well. I knew that 2 years and a half ago, and for the last 2.5 years I have been thinking about it. Thinking of just that deal. And now, mother and she have taken it into their heads that she can put up with Mr. Luzin, who propounds the theory of superiority of wives raised from destitution and owning everything to their husband's bounty. Who propounds it too, almost at the first interview. Granted that he let it slip, though he is a sensible man. Yet, maybe it was not a slip at all, but he meant to make himself clear as black bread and water as soon as possible. But Donia? Donia. She understands the man, of course, but she will have to live with the man. Why? She'd live on black bread and water. She would not sell her soul. She would not barter her mortal freedom for comfort. She would not barter it for all the Schwelzewig Holstein, much less Mr. Luzin's money. No, Donia was not that sort when I knew her. She is still the same, of course. Yet there is no denying the Svirgalovs are bitter pill. It's a bitter thing to spend one's life a governess in provinces of 200 rubles. But I know she would rather be a... Oh, interesting. Interesting that a ninja on a plantation or led with a German master that degrade her soul and her moral dignity by binding herself forever to a man whom she does not respect and with whom she has nothing in common. For her own advantage. And if Mr. Luzin had been unalloyed gold or one huge diamond, she would never have consented to become his legal concubine. Why is she consenting then? What's the point of it? What's the answer? It's clear enough for herself, for her comfort, to save her life. She would not sell herself, but for someone else she's doing it. For one she loves, for one she adores, she will sell herself. That's what it all amounts to. For her brother, for her mother, she will sell herself. She will sell everything. In such cases, we overcome our moral happy. More than that, we become casuist. Yes, we learn to be Jesuitic. It's an interesting phrasing in some of this. We learn to be justicical, and for a time, maybe we can soothe ourselves. We can persuade ourselves that it is one's duty for a good object. That's just like us, it's as clear as daylight. It's clear that Rodon Romanovich Raskolnikov is in the center figure in the business and no one else. Oh, yes. She can ensure his happiness, keep him in the university, make him a partner in the office, make his whole future secure. Perhaps he may even be a rich man later on, prosperous, respected, and may even end his life on a famous man. But my mother? It's all Rodia, precious Rodia, her firstborn, for such a son who would not sacrifice such a daughter. Oh, long over partial hearts. Why, for his sake, we would not shrink even from Sonia's fate. Sonia Marmeladov, the eternal victim so long as the world lasts. Have you taken the measure of your sacrifice, both of you? Is it right? Can you bear it? Is it any use? Is there sense in it? And let me tell you, Donia, Sofia's life is no worse than life with Mr. Luzin. There can be no question of love, mother writes, and what if there can be no respect either? If on the contrary there is aversion, contempt, repulsion, what then? So you will have to keep your appearances too. Is not that so? Do you understand what that smartness means? Do you understand that losing smartness is Sonia is just the same thing as Sonia's, and maybe worse, viler, baser. Because in your case, Donia, it's bargain for luxuries after all, but with Sonia, it's simply a question of starvation. It has to be paid for. It has to be paid for, Donia, this smartness. And what if it's more than you can bear afterwards? If you regret it? The bitterness, the misery, the curses, the tears hidden from all the world. For you are not a Marfa Petrovna. And now, how will your mother feel then? Even now, she's uneasy, she's worried. But then, when she sees it all clearly. And I, yes, indeed, what have you taken me for? I won't have your sacrifice, Donia. I won't have it, mother. It shall not be so long as I am alive. It shall not, I won't accept it. He suddenly paused in his reflection and stood still. It shall not be? But what are you going to do to prevent it? You'll forbid it? And what right have you? What can you promise them on your side to give you such a right? Your whole life, your whole future, you will devote to them when you have finished your studies and obtained a post? Yes, we have heard all that before. And that's all words. But now something must be done. Now. Do you understand that? And what are you doing now? You are living upon them. They borrow on their 100 rubles pensions. They borrow from the Svidgravlovs. How are you going to save them from Svidgravlovs for Afanasy Ivanovich Varhushin? Future millionaire Zeus who would arrange their lives for them. In another 10 years? Another 10 years, mother will be blind with knitting shawls, maybe with weeping too. She will be worn to a shadow with fasting, and my sister? Imagine for a moment what may have become of your sister in 10 years. What may happen to her during those 10 years? Can you fancy? So he tortured himself, fretting himself with such questions, and finding a kind of enjoyment in it. And yet, all these questions were not new ones suddenly confronting them. They were old, familiar aches. It was long since they had first begun to grip and rend his heart. Long, long ago, his present anguish had its first beginnings. It has waxed and gathered strength. It had matured and concentrated until it had taken the form of a fearful, frenzied, and fantastic question, which tortured his heart and mind, clamoring incessantly for an answer. Now his mother's letter had burst on him like a thunderclap. It was clear that he must now suffer passively, worrying himself over unsolved questions, but that he must not now suffer passively, worrying himself over unsolved questions, but that he must do something, do it at once, and do it quickly. Anyway, he must decide on something, or else. Or throw up life altogether, he cried suddenly in a frenzy. Accept one's lot humbly as it is, once for all, and stifle everything in oneself, giving up all claim to activity, life, and love. Do you understand, sir? Do you understand what it means when you have absolutely no one to turn? Marmeladov's question came suddenly into his mind. For every man must have somewhere to turn. He gave a sudden start. Another thought that he had yesterday slipped back into his mind, but he did not start at the thought recurring to him, for he knew he had left beforehand that it must come back. He was expecting it. Besides, it was not only yesterday's thought. The difference was that a month ago, yesterday even, the thought was mere dream, but now it appeared not a dream at all. It had taken a new menacing, quite an unfamiliar shape. And he suddenly became aware of this himself. He felt a hammering in his head, and there was a darkness before his eyes. He looked around hurriedly. He was searching for something. He wanted to sit down and was looking for a seat. Okay. Okay. He went to sit down and was looking for a seat. He was walking along the Quai Boulevard. There was a seat about 100 paces in front of him. He walked towards it as fast as he could, but on the way he met with a little adventure which absorbed all his attention. Looking for the seat, he had noticed a woman walking some 20 paces in front of him. But at first, he took no more notice of her than of other objects that crossed his paths. It had happened to him many times going home, not to notice the road by which he was going, and he was accustomed to walk like that. But there was at first sight something so strange about the woman in front of him, that gradually his attention was riveted upon her. At first reluctantly, as if it were resentfully, and then more and more intently. He felt a sudden desire to find out what it was that was so strange about the woman. In the first place, she appeared to be a girl quite young, and she was walking in the great heat bareheaded, and with no parasol or gloves, waving her arms about in an absurd way. She had on a dress of some light silky material, but put on a strangely awry, not properly hooked up, and torn open at the top of the skirt, close to the waist. A great piece was rent and hanging loose. A little kerchief was flung about her bare throat, but lay slanting on one side. The girl was walking unsteadily, too, stumbling and staggering from side to side. She drew Raskolnikov's whole attention at last. He overtook the girl at the seat, but on reaching it, she dropped down on it in the corner. She let her head sink on the back of the seat and closed her eyes, apparently in extreme exhaustion. Looking at her closely, he saw at once that she was completely drunk. It was a strange and shocking sight. He could hardly believe that he was not mistaken. He saw before him the face of a quite young, fair-haired girl, 16 perhaps, not more than 15. Perhaps not more than 15 years old, pretty little face but flushed and heavy-looking, and, as it were, swollen. The girl seemed hardly to know what she was doing. She crossed one leg over the other, lifted it indecorously, and showed every sign of being unconscious that she was in the street. Okay, so girl just passed the fuck out. Fair enough. Raskolnikov did not sit down, but he felt unwilling to leave her, and stood facing her in perplexity. This boulevard was never much frequented, and now, at 2 o'clock, in the stifling heat, it was quite deserted. And yet, on the further side of the boulevard, about 15 paces away, a gentleman was standing on the edge of the pavement. He, too, would apparently have liked to approach the girl with some object of his own. He, too, had probably seen her in the distance and had followed her, but found Raskolnikov in his way. He looked angrily at him, though he tried to escape his notice, and stood impatiently biding his time, till the unwelcome man in rags should have moved away. His intentions were unmistakable. The gentleman was a plump, thickly set man, about 30, fashionably dressed, with a high collar, red lips and moustache. Raskolnikov felt furious. He had a sudden longing to insult this fat dangy in some way. He left the girl for a moment and walked towards the gentleman. "Hey, you, Svidgravlov, what do you want here?" he shouted, clenching his fists and laughing, spurting with rage. "What do you mean?" the gentleman asked sternly, scowling in haughty astonishment. "Get away, that's what I mean. How dare you, you low fellow!" He raised his cane. Raskolnikov rushed at him with his fists, without reflecting at the stout gentleman. He raised his cane. Raskolnikov rushed at him with his fists, without reflecting that the stout gentleman was a match for the two men like himself. But at an instant, he seized him from behind, and a police constable stood behind him. "That's enough, gentlemen. No fighting, please, in the public place." What do you want? Who are you? He asked Raskolnikov sternly, noticing his rags. Raskolnikov looked at him sternly. Intently, he had a straightforward, sensible, soldierly face with a grey moustache and whiskers. You are just the man I want, Raskolnikov cried, catching his arm. I'm a student, Raskolnikov. You may as well know that too, he added, addressing the gentleman. Come along, I have something to show you. And taking the policeman by the hand, he drew him towards the seat. Look here, hopelessly drunk, and she was just come down the boulevard. There is no telling who and what she is. She does not look like a professional. It's more likely she has been given drink and deceived somewhere for the first time, you understand? And they've put her on into the street like that. Look at the way her dress is torn, and the way it has been put on. She had been dressed by somebody. She has not dressed herself, and dressed by unpracticed hands, by a man's hands, that's evident. And now look there, I don't know that dandy with whom I was going to fight. I see him for the first time, but he too has seen her on the road, just now, drunk, not knowing what she is doing, and now he's very eager to get a hold of her. To get her away somewhere while she's still in the state, that's certain, believe me, I'm not wrong. I saw him myself watching her and following her, but I prevented him, and he is just waiting for me to go away. Now he was walked away a little and standing still, pretending to make a cigarette. Think how can we keep her out of his hands, and how we to get her home. The policeman saw it in a flash. The stout gentleman was easy to understand. He turned to consider the girl. The policeman bent over to examine her more closely, and his face worked with genuine compassion. Ah, what a pity, he said, shaking his head. Why, she's quite a child. She has been deceived, you can see that at once. Listen, lady, he began addressing her. Where do you live? The girl opened her weary and sleepy-looking eyes, gazed blankly at the speaker, and waved her hand. Here, said Raskolnikov, feeling his pocket and finding 20 kopecks. Here, call a cab and tell him to drive to her address. The only thing that is to find is her address. Missy, policeman began again, taking the money. I'll fetch you a cab and take you home myself. Where shall I take you, eh? Where do I live? Go away, they won't let me alone, girl muttered, and once more waved her hands. How shocking. It's shameful, Missy, it's shame. He shook her head, shocked, sympathetic, and indignant. It's a difficult job, the policeman said to Raskolnikov. As he did so, he looked him up and down with a rapid glance. He too must have seemed a strange figure to him, dressed in rags and handing him money. Did you meet her far from here? He asked him. I tell you, she was walking in front of me, staggering just here in the boulevard. She only just reached the seat and sank down on it. Ah, the shameful things that are done in the world nowadays. God have mercy on us. An innocent creature like that, drunk already. She had been deceived, that's sure thing. See how her dress had been torn. The vice one sees nowadays. And as likely as not, she belongs to gentlefolk too. Poor ones, maybe. There are many like that nowadays. She looks refined too, as though she were a lady. And he bent over her once more. Perhaps he had daughters growing up like that, looking like ladies and refined, with pretensions and gentility and smartness. The chief thing is, Raskolnikov persisted, to keep her out of the scoundrel's hands. Why should he outrage her? It's as clear as day what he's after. Ah, the brute, he's not moving off. Raskolnikov spoke aloud and pointed to him. The gentleman heard him and seemed about to fly to rage again, but thought better of it and confined himself to a contemptuous look. He then walked slowly another 10 paces away and again halted. Keep her out of his hands we can, said the constable thoughtfully, if only she'll tell us where to take her. But as it is, Missy, hey, Missy! He bent over her once more. She opened her eyes fully all of a sudden, looked looked at him intently as though realizing something, got up from the seat and walked away in her direction of which she had come. "Oh, shameful wretches, they won't let me alone," she said, waving her hand again. She walked quickly, though staggering as before. The dandy followed her, but along another avenue, keeping her eye on her. "Don't be anxious, I won't let him have her," the policeman said resolutely, and he set off after him. "Ah, the vice one sees nowadays," he repeated aloud, sighing. At that moment, something seemed to sting Raskolnikov. In an instant, a complete revulsion of feeling came over him. Okay. Interesting. Oh, welcome. That's a Jupiter. Welcome, Mara Mara. I'm reading a book. The moment something seemed to sting Raskolnikov, in an instant a complete revulsion of feeling came over him. Okay. Let him be. What does it do with you? Let her go. Let him amuse himself, he pointed at Dandy. What does it do with you? The policeman was bewildered and stared at him open eye. Raskolnikov laughed. Well, educated the policeman. There was a gesture of contempt as he walked up after the dandy and the girl, probably taking Raskolnikov for a madman or something even worse. He has carried off my 20 kopechks, Raskolnikov muttered angrily, when he was left alone. Well, let him take as much from the father fellow to allow him to have the girl, and so let it end. And why did I want to interfere? It is for me to help? Have I any right to help? Let them devour each other alive. What is it to me? How did I dare to give him 20 kopechks? Were they mine? In spite of those strange words, he felt very wretched. He sat down on a deserted seat. He thought straight aimlessly. He found it hard to fix his mind on anything at the moment. He longed to forget himself altogether, to forget everything, and then to wake up and begin life anew. Poor girl, he said, looking at the empty corner where she had sat. She will come to herself and weep, and then her mother will find out. She will give her a beating, a horrible, shameful beating, and then maybe turn her out of the doors. Even if she does not, the Darya Fransovanas will get wind of it, and the girl will soon be sleeping out on the sly here and there. And then there will be the hospital directly. That's always the luck of those girls with respectable mothers who go wrong on the sly. And then again the hospital, drink, the taverns, and more hospital. In 2 or 3 years, a wreck, and her life over at 18 or 19. Have not I seen cases like that? And how have they been brought to it? Why they've all come to it like that? What does it matter? That's as it should be. They tell us. A certain percentage, they tell us, must every year go that way to the devil, I suppose, so that the rest may remain chaste and not be interfered with. A percentage. What splendid words they have. They are so scientific, so conciliatory. So consolatory, yes. Once you've said percentage, there is nothing more to worry about. If we had any other word, maybe we might feel more uneasy. But what if Donia were one of the percentage, or another one, if not that one? But where am I going? He thought suddenly. Strange. I came out for something. As soon as I had read the letter, I came out. I was going to Vasilievsky Ostrov to Razumihin. That's what it was. Now I remember. What for, though? And what put the idea of going to Razumihin into my head just now? That's curious. Good morning, Yoni Bunbun. He wondered at himself. Razumihin was one of his old comrades at the university. It was remarkable that Raskolnikov had hardly any friends at the university. He kept aloof from everyone, went to see no one, and did not welcome anyone who came to see him. And indeed, everyone soon gave him up. He took no part in the students' gatherings, amusements, and conversations. He worked with great intensity without sparing himself, and he he was respected for this, but no one liked him. He was very poor, and there was a sort of haughty pride and reserve about him, as though he were keeping something to himself. He seemed to some of his comrades to look down upon them all as children, as though he were superior in development, knowledge, and convictions, as though their beliefs and interests were beneath him. With Razumihin, he had got on, or at least he was more unreserved and communicative with him. Indeed, it was impossible to be on any other terms with Razumihin. He was an exceptionally good-humored and candid youth, good-natured to devoid of simplicity, though both depth and dignity lay concealed under that simplicity. The better of his comrades understood this, and all were fond of him. He was extremely intelligent, though he was certainly rather a simpleton at times. He was of striking appearance, tall, thin, black-haired, and always badly shaved. He was sometimes uproarious, and was reputed to be of great physical strength. One night, when out in a festive company, he had with one blow laid a gigantic policeman on his back. There was no limit to his drinking powers, but he could abstain from drink altogether. He sometimes went too far in his pranks, but he could do without pranks altogether. Another thing striking about Razumihin, no failure distressed him, and it seemed as though no unfavorable circumstances could crush him. He could lodge anywhere, and bear the extremes of cold and hunger. He was very poor, and kept himself entirely on what he could earn by work of one sort or another. He knew of no end of resources by which to earn money. He spent one whole winter without lighting his stove, and used to declare that he liked it better, because one slept more soundly in the cold. For the present he, too, had been obliged to give up the university, but it was only for a time, and he was working with all his might to save enough to return to his studies again. Raskolnikov had not been to see him for the last 4 months, and Razumihin did not even know his address. About 2 months before, they had met in the street, but Raskolnikov had turned away and even crossed to the other side that he might not be observed. And though Razumihin noticed him, he passed him by, as he did not want to annoy him. Oh, hey, Diana. Welcome, dear. Sorry, I am, it's a little calmer today, I guess. I'm not surprised, considering people are still getting used to my new time zone, so... It's not going to be a long stream today either, so because I went to eat, I went to do other stuff, understandably so. But still welcome everybody. I just finished chapter 4. We find our main character in a quite interesting position. He is very conflicted over everything. He's very conflicted about his entire personality, his entire sake. He's very conflicted about everything. And that is, I find it quite interesting, I would say. Because a conflicted character is often one to bring a lot of interesting moments to things. On one hand, he has his good nature somewhere deep within. On the other side, his cynicism and his lack of belief in the world is weighing down his good nature, and he is quite literally contradicting himself at times with various statements, various intentions, and various commitments or lack thereof. So this situation is very interesting again. So we're gonna continue on and see what happens in chapter 5, and that's gonna be the final chapter for the day. I think I will be reading for 2 chapters per stream because I don't think I will. I will be focusing too much on the. Well, no. This time I will read 2 chapters, and then next time I will read 3 to equal it out. So it will be 8, and I'm now from this point I can continue reading chapters by 2s. Okay, that's what I'm gonna be doing. I think it's too quiet for me to be joined in by anyone else anyway, so. Chapter 5. Of course, I've been meaning lately to go to Razumihin's to ask for work, to ask him to get me to get me lessons or something, Raskolnikov thought. But what help can he be to me now? Suppose he gets me lessons, suppose he shares his last farthing with me, if he has any farthings, so that I could get some boots and make myself tidy enough to give lessons. Well, and what then? What shall I do with the few coppers I earn? That's not what I want now. It's really absurd for me to go to Razumihin. The question why he was now going to Razumihin agitated him more and more, even more than he was himself aware. He kept uneasily seeking for some sinister significance in his appearance, apparently ordinary action. Could I have expected to set it all straight and to find a way out by means of Razumihin alone? He asked himself in perplexity. He pondered and rubbed his forehead, and, strange to say, after a long musing, suddenly, as if it were spontaneously and by chance, a fantastic thought came into his head. To Razumihin's, he said all at once, calmly, as though he had reached a final determination. I shall go to Razumihin's, of course, but not now. I shall go to him on the next day after it, when it will be over and everything will begin afresh. Suddenly he realized what he was thinking. After it, he shouted, jumping up from his seat. But is it really going to happen? Is it possible it really will happen? He left the seat and went off almost at a run. He meant to turn back homewards, but the thought of going home suddenly filled him with intense loathing. In that hall, in that awful little cupboard of his, all this had for a month past been growing up in him, and he walked on at random. His nervous shudder had passed into a fever that made him feel shivering. In spite of the heat, he felt cold. With a kind of effort, he became almost unconsciously, from some inner cravings, to stare at all the objects before him, as though looking for something to distract his attention. But he did not succeed, and kept dropping every moment into brooding. When with a start he lifted his head again and looked round, he forgot at once what he had just been thinking about and even where he was going. In this way, he walked right across Vasilievsky Ostrov and came out to Lesser Neva, crossed the bridge and turned towards the islands. The greenness and freshness were at first restful to his weary eyes, after the dust of the town and the huge houses that hemmed him in and waited upon him. Here there were no taverns, no stifling closeness, no stench. But soon these new pleasant sensations passed into morbid irritability. Sometimes he stood still before a brightly painted summer villa, standing among green foliage. He gazed through the fence. He saw in the distance smartly dressed women on the verandas and the balconies, and children running in the gardens. The flowers especially caught his attention. He gazed at them longer than at anything. He was met, too, by luxurious carriages and by men and women on horseback. He watched them with curious eyes and forgot about them before they had vanished from his sight. Once he stood still and counted his money. He found he had 30 kopecks, 20 to policemen, 3 to Nastya for the letter, So I must have given 47 or 50 to the Marmeladovs yesterday, he thought, reckoning it up for some unknown reason. But he soon forgot it with that object he had taken. But he soon forgot with what object he had taken the money out of his pocket. He recalled it on the passing an eating house or a tavern, and felt that he was hungry. Going into the tavern, he drank a glass of vodka and ate a pie of some sort. He finished eating it, and as he walked away, it was a long while since he had taken vodka, and it had been an effect upon him at once. Though he only drank a wine's glassful, his legs felt suddenly heavy, and a great drowsiness came upon him. He turned homewards, but reaching Petrovsky Ostrov, he stopped completely exhausted, turned off the road into the bushes, sank down upon the grass, and instantly fell asleep. Hey, got some sleep more than my teacher and can rest still. Nice. Good luck with resting a little bit, Ernie. Glad you can rest. I've been resting the too. And so is Raskolnikov, apparently. He's also resting. Raskolnikov had a fearful dream. He dreamt he was back in his childhood, in the little town of his birth. He was a child about 7 years old, walking into the country with his father on the evening of a holiday. It was a grey and heavy day. The country was exactly as he remembered it. Indeed, he recalled it far more vividly in his dream than he had done in his memory. The little town stood on a level flat, as bare as a hand, not even a willow near it. Only in the far distance a copse lay, a dark blur on the very edge of the horizon. A few places beyond the last market garden stood a big tavern, which had always aroused in him a feeling of aversion, even of fear, when he walked by it with his father. There was always a crowd there, always shouting, laughter, and abuse, hideous hoarse singing, and often fighting. Drunken and horrible-looking figures were hanging about the tavern. He used to cling close to his father, trembling all over when he met them. Near the tavern the road became a dusty track, the dust of which was always black. It was a winding road, and about 100 paces further on, it turned to the right to the graveyard. In the middle of the graveyard stood a stone church with a green cupola, where he used to go to mass 2 or 3 times a year with his father and mother, when a service was held in the memory of his grandmother, who had been long dead and whom he had never seen. On these occasions, he used to take on a white dish tied up in a table napkin, a special sort of rice pudding with raisins stuck in it in the shape of a cross. He loved that church, the old-fashioned and adorned icons, and the old priest with the shaking head. Near the grandmother's grave, which was marked by a stone, was a little grave of his younger brother, who had died at 6 months old. He did not remember him at all, but he had been told about his little brother, and whether he visited the graveyard, he used religiously and reverently to cross himself and to bow down and kiss the little grave. And now he dreamt that he was walking with his father past the tavern on the way to the graveyard. He was holding his father's hand and looking with dread at the tavern. A peculiar circumstance attracted his attention. There seemed to be some kind of festivity going on. There were crowds of gaily dressed townspeople, peasant women, their husbands, and riffraff of all sorts, all singing and all more or less drunk. Near the entrance of the tavern stood a cart, but a strange cart. It was one of those big carts, usually drawn by heavy cart horses and laden with casks of wine or other heavy goods. He always liked looking at those great cart horses with their long manes, thick legs, and slow, even pace, drawing along a perfect mountain with no appearance of effort, as though it was easier going with a load than without it. But now, strange to say, in the shafts of such a cart, he saw a thin little sorrel beast, one of those peasants' nags which he had often seen straining their utmost under a heavy load of wood or hay, especially when the wheels were stuck in the mud or in a rut, and the peasants would beat them so cruelly, sometimes even about the nose and eyes, and he felt so sorry for them, that he almost cried, and his mother always used to take him away from the window. All of a sudden, there was a great uproar of shouting, singing, and the balalaika, and from the tavern a number of big and very drunken peasants came out, wearing red and blue shirts and coats thrown over their shoulders. Get in, shouted one of them, a young thick-necked peasant with a fresh, fleshy red face red as a carrot. I'll take you all, get in. But at once there was an outbreak of laughter and exclamations in the crowd. Take us all with a beast like that? Why, Mikolka, are you crazy to put a nag like that in such a cart? And this mare is 20 if she is a day, mates. Get in! I'll take you all, Mikolka shouted again, leaping first into the cart, seizing the reins and standing straight up in front. The bay has gone with Matvey, he shouted from the cart, and this brute, mates, is just breaking my heart. I feel as if I could kill her. She's just eating her head off. Get in, I tell you. I'll make her gallop. She'll gallop. And he picked up a whip, preparing himself with relish to flog a little mare. Get in, come along, the crowd laughed. Do you hear? She'll gallop. Gallop indeed. She has not had a gallop in her for the last 10 years. She'll jog along. Don't you mind her, mates. Bring a whip, each of you. Get ready. All right, give it to her. They all clambered into Mikolka's cart, laughing and making jokes. 6 men got in, and there was still room for more. They hauled in a fat, rosy-cheeked woman. She was dressed in red cotton, in a pointed, beaded headdress and thick leather shoes. She was cracking nuts and laughing. The crowd round them was laughing too, and indeed, how could they help laughing? That wretched nag was to drag all the cartload of them at a gallop. The young fellows in the cart were just getting whips ready to help Mikolka. With a cry of "Now!" the mare tugged with all her might, but far from galloping, could scarcely move forward. She struggled with her legs, gasping and shrieking from the blows of the 3 whips which were showered upon her like hail. The laughter in the cart and in the crowd was redoubled, but Mikolka flew into a rage and furiously thrashed the mare, as though he supposed she really could gallop. "Let me get in too, mates," shouted a young man in the crowd, whose appetite was roused. "Get in, I'll get in," cried Mikolka. "She will draw you all. I'll beat her to death." And he thrashed and thrashed at the mare, beside himself with fury. Father, father," he cried. "Father, what are they doing? Father, why they are beating the poor horse." Come along," said his father. "They are drunken and foolish. They are in fun. Come away, don't look." And he tried to draw him away, but he tore himself away from his hand, and beside himself with horror ran into the horse. The poor beast was in a bad way. She was gasping, standing still, then tugging again, and almost failing. "Beat her to death," cried Mikolka. "It's come to that. I'll do for her." What are you about? Are you a Christian, you devil?" shouted an old man in the crowd. Did anyone ever see the like? A wretched nag like that pulling such a cartload, such and said another. You'll kill her, shouted the third. Don't meddle, it's my property. I'll do what I choose. Get in, more of you, get in, all of you. I will have her go at a gallop. At once, laughing broke into a roar that covered everything. The mayor, roused by the shower of blows, began feebly kicking, and even Old Man could not help smiling. To think of a wretched little beast like that trying to kick. Two lads in the crowd snatched up whips and ran to the mare to beat her about the ribs, one each, ran each side. Hit her in the face, in the eyes, cried Mikolka. Give us a song, mates, shouted someone in the cart, and everyone in the cart joined in a rigorous song, jingling and tumbling and whistling. The woman went on cracking nuts and laughing. He ran beside the mare, ran in front of her, saw her being whipped across the eyes, and right in the eyes, he was crying. He felt choking. His tears were streaming. One of the men gave him a cut with the whip across his face. He did not feel it. Wringing his hands and screaming, he rushed up to the grey-headed old man with a grey beard who was shaking his head in disapproval. One moment seized him by the hand and would have taken him away, but he tore himself from her and ran back to the mare. He was almost at the last gasp, but began kicking once more. I'll teach you to kick, Mikolka shouted ferociously. He threw down the whip, bent forward, and picked up from the bottom of the cart a long, thick shaft. He took hold of one end with both hands, and with an effort brandished it over the mare. He'll crush her, was shouted around him. He'll kill her. It's my property, shouted Mikolka, and brought the shaft down with a single blow. There was sound of heavy thud. Thrash her, why have you stopped? Shouted the voice in the crowd. Hey, son. And thank you for the headpads. I'm reading some heavy literature, actually, pretty heavy. Crime and Punishment. That's I keep forgetting how fucking doomer like our literature is sometimes. And Mikolka swung the shaft a second time, and it fell a second time on the spine of the luckless mare. She sank back on her haunches, but lurched forward and tugged forward with all of her force, tugged first on one side and then on the other, trying to move the cart. But the six width were attacking her in all directions, and the shaft was raised again and fell upon her third time, then fourth, with heavy measured blows. Mikolka was in a fury, but he could not kill her at one blow. She's a tough one, was shouted in the crowd. She'll fall in a minute, mates. We'll soon be at an end of her, said an admiring spectator in the crowd. Fetch an axe to her. Finish her up. Okay. Finish her off, shouted the third. I'll show you. Stand off. Mikolka screamed frantically. He threw down the shaft, stooped down in the cart, and picked up an iron crowbar. Look out, he shouted, and with all his might he dealt a stunning blow to the poor mare. The blow fell, the mare staggered, sank back, tried to pull, but the bar fell again with a swinging blow on her back, and she fell on the ground like a log. Finish her off, shouted Mikolka, and he leapt beside himself out of the cart. Several young men, also flushed with drink, seized anything they could come across, whips, sticks, poles, and ran to the dying mare. Mikolka stood on one side and began dealing random blows with the crowbar. Crowbar! Okay. The mare stretched on her head, drew a long breath, and died. You butchered her, someone shouted in the crowd. Why wouldn't she gallop then? My property! Shouted Mikolka with bloodshot eyes, brandishing the bar in his hands. He stood as though regretting that he had nothing more to beat. No mistake about it, you are not Christian, many voices were shouting in the crowd. But the poor boy beside himself made his way screaming to the crowd, to the sorrel nag, put his arms around a bleeding dead head and kissed it. Kissed the eyes and licked his lips. Then he jumped up and flew a frenzy with his little fist Mikolka, and that instant his father has been running after him, snatched him up and carried him out of the crowd. Come along, come, let us go home, he said to him. Father, why did they kill the poor horse? He sobbed, but his voice broke at the words came in shrieks from his panting chest. They are drunk, they are brutal. It's none of our business, said his father. He put his arms around his father, but he felt choked. He tried to draw breath, to cry out, and woke up. What a dream. That was a nightmare, by the way. He waked up, gasping for breath, his hair soaked with perspiration, and stood up in terror. Thank God that was only a dream, he sat down under a tree, drawing deep breaths. What is it? Is it some fever coming on? Such a hideous dream. He felt utterly broken. Darkness and confusion were in his soul. He rested his elbows on his knees and leaned his back on his hands. Good God, he cried. He cried. He be craying. Can it be that I shall really take an axe, that I shall strike her on the head, split her skull open, that I shall tread on the sticky warm blood, break the lock, seal and treble, hide all splattered in blood with axe? Good God, can it be? He was shaking like a leaf as he said this. But why am I going on like this? He continued, sitting up again, as it were, in profound amazement. I knew that I could never bring myself to it. So what have I been torturing myself for till now? Yesterday, when I went to make that experiment yesterday, I realized completely that I could never bear to do it. Why am I going over in it again? Why am I hesitating? As I came down the stairs yesterday, I tell myself that it was the base, loathsome, vile. The very thought of it made me sick and filled me with horror. No, I couldn't do it. Granted, that there was no flaw in that reasoning. That all that I have concluded this last month is clear as day, true as arithmetic. My God. Anyway, I couldn't bring myself to it. I couldn't do it. Why then am I still... He rose to his feet, looked around in wonder, as though surprised at finding himself in this place, and went towards the bridge. He was pale. His eyes glowed. He was exhausted in every limb, but he seemed suddenly to breathe more easily. He felt he had cast off that fearful burden that had so long been weighing upon him, and all at once there was a sense of relief and peace in his soul. Lord, he prayed, show me my path. I renounced that accursed dream of mine. Crossing the bridge, he gazed quietly and calmly at the Neva, at the glowing red sun settling in the glowing sky. In spite of his weakness, he was not conscious of fatigue. It was as though an abscess that has been forming for a month past in his heart had suddenly broken. Freedom! He was free from that spell, that sorcery, that obsession. Later on, when he recalled that time, and all that happened to him during those days, minute by minute, point by point, he was superstitiously impressed by one circumstance, which, though in itself was not very exceptional, always seemed to him afterwards the predestined turning point of his fate. He could never understand and explain it to himself why, when he was tired and worn out, when it would have been more convenient for him to go home by the shortest and most direct way he had returned by the Haymarket, where he had no need to go. It was obviously and quite unnecessarily out of his way, though not much so. It is true that it happened to him dozens of times to return home without noticing what streets he passed through. But why? He was always asking himself, why had such an important, such a decisive, and at the same time such an absolutely chance meeting happened in the Haymarket, where he had moreover no reason to go? At the very hour, the very minute of his life, when he was just in the very mood and in the very circumstances in which that meeting was able to exert the gravest and most decisive influence on his whole destiny, as though it has been lying in wait for him on purpose. It was about 9 o'clock when he crossed the Haymarket. At the tables and the barrows, at the booths and the shops, all the market people were closing their establishments or clearing away and packing up their wares and, like their customers, were going home. Rag picklers and customongers of all kinds were crowding around the taverns in the dirty and stinking country yards of the Haymarket. Raskolnikov particularly liked this place, and the neighboring alleys, when he wandered aimlessly in the streets. Here his rags did not attract contemptuous attention, and one could walk about in any attire without scandalizing people. At the corner of an alley, a huckster and his wife had two tables set out with tapes, thread, cotton, handkerchiefs, and etc. They too had got up to go home, but were lingering in conversation with a friend who had just come up to them. This friend was Lizaveta Ivanovna, or as everyone called her, Lizaveta, the younger sister of the old pawnbroker, Alyona Ivanovna, whom Raskolnikov had visited the previous day to pawn his watch and make his experiment. He already knew all about Lizaveta, and she knew him a little too. She was a single woman of about 35, tall, clumsy, timid, submissive, and almost idiotic. She was a complete slave and went in fear and trembling of her sister, who made her work day and night and even beat her. She was standing with a bundle before the huckster and his wife, listening earnestly and doubtfully. They were talking of something with special warmth. The moment Raskolnikov caught sight of her, he was overcome with a strange sensation, as if it were of intense astonishment, though there was nothing astonishing about this meeting. "You can make up your own mind up for yourself, Elizaveta Ivanovna," the huckster was saying aloud. "Come around tomorrow about 7. They will be there too." "They will be here too." "Tomorrow?" said Lizaveta slowly and thoughtfully, as though unable to make up her mind. "Upon my word, what a fright you are in of Alyona Ivanovna," gabbled the huckster's wife, a lovely little woman. Look at you. You are like some little babe. And she is not your own sister either, nothing but a stepsister, and what a hand she keeps over you. But this time, don't say a word to Alyona Ivanovna, her husband interrupted. That's my advice, but come around to us without asking. It will be worth your while. Later on, your sister herself may have a notion. Am I to come? About 7 o'clock tomorrow. And they will be here too. You will be able to decide for yourself. And we'll have a cup of tea, added his wife. All right, I'll come, said Lizaveta, still pondering, and she began slowly moving away. Raskolnikov had just passed and heard no more. He passed softly, unnoticed, trying not to miss a word. His first amazement was followed by a thrill of horror, like a shiver running down his spine. He had suddenly quite unexpectedly learned that the next day at 7 o'clock, Lizaveta, the old woman's sister and only companion, would be away from home, and that therefore, at 7 o'clock precisely, the woman would be left alone. He was only a few steps from his lodging. He went in like a man condemned to death. He thought of nothing, and was incapable of thinking. But he felt suddenly in his whole being that he had no more freedom of thought, no will, and everything was suddenly irrevocably decided. Suddenly, if he had to wait whole years for a suitable opportunity, he could not reckon on a more certain step towards the success of the plan than that which had just presented itself. In any case, it would have been difficult to find out beforehand, and with certainty, with greater exactness and less risk, and without dangerous inquiries and investigations, that the next day at a certain time an old woman on whose life an attempt was contemplated would be at home entirely alone. Damn. And so the man contemplates murder. And that's where we stop for now. It's a very short stream today because I'm just testing on the waters, but I feel like it would be a good wake up situation for me. Obviously, the streams off tomorrow, yeah, of Thursday and Friday will be much more. I might add another stream tomorrow though, just in case. My mornings are very free, so I will have the rest of the day to myself. Depends on what I do and depends on how I do it, but yeah. I might upload the first first 5 chapters I've read as separate chapters from my VODs and stuff with chat and everything. But still, I might do that later. I will just stop at this point. I do have a question though, guys. Would you like me to do something else before I stop today, or should I just conclude? Because I could play a game, I could like do some other stuff if you guys want to. Ooh, nice, at least playing.
Traits?
Huh. Lovely. I hope you did not fall asleep in the moment. That'd be the middle asleep. I might change the. You know what? No, I'll take a pause here. I'll eat and then I'm do another stream of some sort. I'll do another stream. It will be more. It will be a different stream. I'll be back. I'll be right back. Actually, I shall be back in an hour or so, and continue this for a while. Because I decided this is a little too quickly. For now, though, let's raid someone. Let's raid. I will be back on a stream basically. Let's raid. Who should we raid? Well, not re-raiding anyone small this time around because fuck this. Nah, fuck these. Let's find someone new. Let's find someone new real quick. I'm actually curious. Okay, let's see. Can I be able to find someone on the VTuber category? Okay, yeah, though I will pass the highs very quickly. So. Apologies for the silence. I will be. I'm passing through all of the bigger amounts of people. Surprisingly, about a lot of them are. Let's just raid someone really small. Maybe we'll establish a connection even in the process. That'd be nice. Sorry for the vocal fry. Of vocal fry hums. The hums. Okay. Certainly a little more. Okay. So that's. I was wondering why it wasn't loading. Okay. I'm tired of scrolling through people, so. Let's scroll someone. Let's rate someone from this category. Direct deception. Let's do this one. Boon VT. Please go ahead, join the raid if you guys want to. I'm going to be actually let me do it again. Yeah. let's do this. Right. Okay, I accidentally did that. Okay, let's start the raid. Sorry guys. Feel free to join if you want to. I'm gonna be returning in. I'm gonna be returning in like a few hours, in like 2 hours, I think. Because I think I need to stream more. Dania, if you want to stick around, I will be returning in like an hour because I want to eat and then I'm gonna do a gaming stream of some sort. Because I think this 1.5 an hour is a little not enough. Yeah, I'm gonna be doing gaming. Probably either gonna play some Overwatch or Hunt, something like that. We'll see. I need to take a break to eat and stuff, and then I'm just gonna be doing other things. Yes. Thank you for joining me on this little ASMR thingy. I kind of enjoyed myself, even though it was like very little. But I'm going to be doing more in a bit, and most likely play a lot of it. Most likely I'm gonna play a bit of. Most likely I'm gonna go for a fair bit of time. All right, see you in a little bit. And say hello to the person who I am now raiding, Boone VT. I've never raided them before. I don't know them, so say hello to them. See ya.